There was a lot of trade speculation surrounding the Saints and whether or not they can move some of their defensive players, Alontae Taylor, Carl Granderson. At the end of the day, though, before the deadline passes, it's Trevor Penning who gets moved to the Los Angeles Chargers. We'll talk about that move and assess the deadline in general for the Saints right here on the Straight Up Saints podcast.
You're listening to the Straight Up Saints podcast.
What is up, Who Dat Nation? Welcome inside another edition of the Straight Up Saints podcast. I'm your host, Chris Rosevogel, and as always, the Straight Up Saints podcast is brought to you by Scott Ficknair, injury lawyers. Been injured in any kind of accident, car, truck, 18-wheeler, hurt offshore. Scott Ficknair handles it all. You give him a call at 504-500-1111 for a free consultation. They'll always fight for the win. Right before the deadline passed at 4 p.m. Eastern, 3 p.m. Central, the Saints traded Trevor Penning to the Chargers. Compensation hasn't been announced yet. Maybe it'll get announced over the next couple of minutes as we talk about this move and the deadline and the job that Mickey Loomis in the front office did. So let's talk about this trade right here. You're not going to get much back for Trevor Penning. It sounds like a future pick, and when you say future pick, usually they mean 2027, not 2026. So my guess is maybe a day 3 2027 pick for a guy who is going to go up there as one of the biggest busts in the first round that Mickey Loomis has had. The Saints traded an extra first to get Trevor Penning. Essentially, that first ended up being Jalen Carter. And Trevor Penning, unfortunately, whether it's by injuries, whether by his own merit, never lived up to that draft billing. He wasn't good at offensive tackle. Saints kicked him at guard. And anyone who's watched the tape of these past couple games, there's a lot of big plays that don't get to happen because Trevor Penning, frankly, isn't good. Now, I understand why the Chargers would go for him. They're banged up at offensive tackle. I'd imagine they're going to kick Penning out there. Good luck on that part. But for the Saints, Penning's not part of the long-term plans. That's very clear. You can easily just throw Dylan Radins or even Simpkins at guard. And especially if it's Radins, you're probably not seeing much of a drop-off at this point. And I think because he's not part of the 2026 team, just to get an asset in general is worth it for New Orleans. I would have loved to seen them, maybe move Alontae Taylor, maybe move Granderson, maybe move Pete Werner, and just accumulate a couple more day 3 picks for the 2026 draft. But again, Saints did make 2 trades today. To be honest, with the way the franchise has been moving of late, it is 2 more than I thought they would have. And now the compensation has come out. It is a 2027 6th-round pick for Trevor Penning. So that sounds about right. It's one of those, what are you offering? A bag of chips? We'll take the chips at this point. And that's what the Saints do there. 2027 6th-round pick for Trevor Penning. So we got that in. As far as the trade deadline goes, if you're trying to grade it, I'd probably go a C+. I think the Shaheed trade actually was good for the Saints in terms of compensation. A 4th and a 5th is more than they would have got back in the comp formula for 2027. So I view that as a plus for the Saints because you get those picks immediately as opposed to waiting another year and having to kind of walk on eggshells in free agency, which I don't want this team to do. Now, as for their core, you didn't trade Olave, you didn't trade Alontae Taylor. Does that mean you're keeping them? If so, what is the number for those extensions? Because to me, that's what would dictate how I feel about the Saints keeping those 2 guys. You see a team like the Jets go full teardown mode. The Saints are keeping Alontae Taylor and they're keeping Chris Olave. What is the price that you are paying to keep those guys? Because I do think they're good football players, and I think the Saints don't have a lot of them. So I'd understand wanting to keep a couple of the few that you have. But the price has to be right because those are 2 very expensive positions, cornerback and wide receiver. Not moving Granderson, a little bit of surprise. Defensive line market was pretty active. It wasn't as rich as I thought it would be outside of Quinnen Williams going to the Cowboys. But I was hoping the Saints maybe move Carl Granderson to a team that could have used the defensive line help. I thought maybe even the Bears because of the Dennis Allen connection. It doesn't happen, so that's a little bit disappointing. And Pete Werner, I thought maybe you just move him just to open up space for Danny Stutzman, but that didn't happen. So overall, like I said, C+. I think the Shaheed trade was good. Trevor Penning one, it's all right, you get an extra pick for 2027, but let's be fucking real. What are you doing with 2027 6th-round pick? Probably not much. I'm just glad that they were able to get rid of Penning because at this point, it's not like he's serving you well on Sundays anyway. So Saints make 2 trades. Really eager to know what you guys think about them. Were you a fan of both deals? Do you hate them? Do you think the Saints didn't do enough at the deadline? Comment down below and we'll get back to you. As always, guys, we'll have you covered here if the Saints do anything else, although they can't make trade until March. We'll have it covered for you here on the Straight Up Saints podcast, the destination for the Who Dat Nation.